Welcome, everyone. I am Bob Wurzelbacher, the director of the Respect Life Office for the Archdiocese of Cincinnati, and this is our video podcast series that we call Being Pro-Life. Each month, we discuss a different topic in the Respect Life arena. We'll hear personal stories from people deeply involved by those issues. And finally, we'll share ways that you can get involved. This week, we're talking about the beauty of art in the home and how it helps raise Catholic and pro-life kids. So let's introduce this week's guest.
Hi there. Thanks so much, Bob, for having me on. My name is Katie Sciba. I am the Catholic at Home columnist for the Archdiocese of Cincinnati, and I've been writing for the Catholic Telegraph for about a year and a half now. And I've been a columnist for about 10 years. Along with being a columnist, I travel across the U.S. and I speak and I give keynotes and retreats and just have a really wonderful time doing it. At home, though, I homeschool our 5 kids. We also have another little one who is waiting for us with Jesus. And my husband, Andrew, and I have been married for 12 and a half years. And he works from home as well. So we are an all-at-home family. So it's homeschooling, and he works from home, and I work from home. And it's a circus, but it's really great, though.
All right, Katie, thanks for sharing all that. So we are, because of the COVID thing, we are now homeschooling this year, hopefully only this year. They were at St. Gertrude's School, but we decided under all these circumstances, we wanted to homeschool. So we have 2 kids at home, and then we also have 2 already waiting for us with Jesus as well. Thanks for sharing that part of your family life as well. Okay, Katie, so this is a pro-life podcast, and today we're talking about art in the home. So what does the pro-life movement look like in the home?
When we consider the pro-life movement and the concept of respect life, I think a lot of us consider praying outside of abortion facilities or even advocating on the sidewalk. We think of life chains. We think of bigger, more public events. But if we're really going to encourage the pro-life movement, if we're going to cultivate it within our culture, that has to begin at home. We have to begin by respecting the lives that are already under our same roof. So that means being open to the life that's already around you. And as a parent, my oldest is 10 and a half, my youngest is 3. And all of our children, they all have several needs several times a day, some of them significant, some of them not at all. So what is a challenge for me is that sometimes if one of my sons comes up to me and says, he took my Lego piece and he knows that it's mine and he won't give it back, and he's telling on his brother, is that important to me? The matter itself, not really. But I need to show my son that what is important to me is his concern. It's an act of mercy, isn't it? Mercy is making somebody else's problem your problem. And so when we are merciful to our own children, if we're respectful and we hear them out in their small tasks, then we're showing them that they have dignity and worth, that they're definitely worth our time and our troubles and our love. And I think this is perhaps an offshoot, but I think if we pay attention to the small problems that our children experience in the day-to-day, if we give them that attention, then in 20 years, when they're facing significant problems, then they will still want to come to us because they know that we, their parents, hear them and respect them.
Katie, I absolutely, totally believe that. For me, my oldest is now 12. And I always want to believe that if you care about their problems when they're 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, then they're going to come to you when they get older. For me, at least, it's much easier said than done. For me, it was when they're 1 and 2 and 3, it's still pretty easy. It was for me anyway, to care about the little problems that, a small child comes to you with. But when kind of what you were talking about, the fighting over Legos or fighting over, in my case, it's a lot about Barbies. It's like, work it out. My goodness, it could be a real struggle to follow through with those. So I hope I'm doing well enough that when problems get big, they'll be willing to come to us. Do you have any advice on the struggle between communicating that you care, right? But at the same time, giving them the ability to work out if it's about a fight with another sibling kind of thing. I can't be the police for every little argument that you're having with your sibling, right? Is there a balance in there that we need to find as parents?
I think I try to find a balance in each situation on its own. So there are some times when I have to go in and be the referee, right? Because both children, or maybe an argument involves multiple children. And so I have to go in and just handle everyone who is super emotional and unable to think clearly, right? Or sometimes it's a matter of separating each one and asking them what happened, their account, and how they feel, and what is it that is going on for them in that moment. Because a lot of the times when we encounter arguments among our kids, they're experiencing very different things. So one might be considering rejection. I wanted to play with you and you're saying no, but then the other one is experiencing injustice. These are my Legos and I don't have to share them. So it's a matter of trying to figure out, okay, what's happening exactly for each one of you here. Sometimes I'll tell my children, if it's a matter of like a physical altercation, he kicked me. Well, it's because she punched me. I'm like, y'all go give each other a hug and work it out, because this is unacceptable. And then sometimes I make my kids who are arguing hold hands. And usually within a minute, they're laughing because it's ridiculous, And so they learn, and this kind of ties back to the whole idea of respect life. They learn that their world is bigger than themselves, and that their siblings, even if they're younger, even if they know less, their siblings are as worthy of respect and care as they are.
So we began this by talking, where the topic anyway is art in the home, and you launched right into respecting each other. So how does beginning by just respecting each other tie into the idea of having art in the home?
It's so important for us to have Catholic and faithful art in our homes, because our homes are the domestic church, right? So we are supposed to model our homes after the church. Now, does that mean that we have stained glass windows and stations of the cross in the living room? Not necessarily, right? Sure, you could go that way. I bet it'll be lovely. But it is so important that we have Catholic art in our homes, because that's something for us to consistently see. It speaks to us without words. Very similar to scripture, I find that the Catholic art that we have, anytime I look upon it, or I invite my kids to look upon it, we can derive something different, something new. Sometimes you'll read the same passage of scripture that you've been reading for the last 30 years of your life, and something new dawns on you out of the very same passage. And how beautiful is it that the same thing can happen with art? Our family has devotion to Our Lady Star of the Sea. I think our draw to Our Lady Star of the Sea is that it's a different concept for us, and we love Mary so much. So we have a small home altar that I made out of a secretary desk that I found on Facebook Marketplace. I got cloth napkins of different colors. I have a purple cloth napkin for Advent and Lent, and a white one for feast days, a red one for Feast of Martyrs, etc. And atop this secretary desk that's our home altar, we have an image of Our Lady Star of the Sea. And recently in prayer, I brought to mind to our kids this lovely quotation from St. Therese that says, "The world is thy ship, not thy home," which is one of my very favorite quotations from St. Therese, because it grounds us in the fact that we are not made for here. We are made for union with God, and that is in heaven. And my 7.5-year-old Peter, he listened to that and he asked me to say it again. And then he stood up and he pointed to the image of Our Lady Star of the Sea, it shows Mary looking upon an ocean. And there's usually in these depictions, there's a small boat. And he pointed to the boat and he goes, "That's us." And Mary is watching us and guiding us to be closer to Jesus. I hadn't told him this, This was something that he put together based on the quotation and the fact that we've had this particular piece of art in our home for years. And something new clicked for him. And then that in turn inspired me, because Christ says that we should have faith like a child. And so this truth, and however sweet it was, and it was very sweet, that really had an impact on me as well, and caused me to, I don't know, it came to mind so many times for the rest of the week for me. I thought, yes, that is who Mary, Star of the Sea is. She is watching us. She is guiding us to Christ.
That's an incredible story. We have an altar in our home as well. It's a bookshelf. I think I went to Hobby Lobby and got, material purple, green, white, and red. We changed that with the seasons. There's similar kinds of stories where kids say things that can be kind of surprising. And it's interesting how you mentioned how it begins just by respecting your kids. And that certainly has everything to do with respecting life. And then that's reflected also in the art in your home. So Our Lady of the Sea, I've heard of that, but we don't have that particular image. Our Lady of Guadalupe is a big one for us. Our home school is called Our Lady of Guadalupe School. And each one of those kids actually went to an art camp and painted an image of Our Lady of Guadalupe on a canvas. And those have been framed and put up on the walls. That's what we've done in our home. So what are other ways? What are things that you do in your home to help keep kids raised in the faith and thinking of pro-life?
I know some people make sure that they have a crucifix in every room just to have that image of true love and sacrifice present everywhere in the house. And so I think we have most of our rooms covered. I don't know that we have it in the bathroom. I don't think we do, but but it's in most every other room. And then I try to take different images out for different feast days. For the Coronation of Mary, which is August 22nd, I have this really beautiful, it's a painting, and it's Mary who is sitting on the floor and kind of leaning up against a bed. And her toddler, Jesus, is sitting on the bed, and he's playing with flowers, and he's kind of sprinkling them on her head. And so she has this crown of flowers, but at the same time, because I'm a mother of little children, when I see that image of her, she looks tired. She's handling a toddler. And even though that toddler was perfect, I'm sure that her motherhood was exhausting as well. And so I see how she's still attentive to her toddler, how she's letting her toddler love her. Now, I know that a lot of us parents, we are touched a lot. Kids want hugs. They want to sit on our laps. And sometimes it's just too much. And I know because my kids, all of them are at home all of the time. So there's a lot of touching. And sometimes I just want some physical distance. I need my space, my bubble maintained, or someone will request to sit on my lap. And I'm like, yeah, in a minute, hold on. Let me breathe for a minute. And then when I consider that image of Mary, who is paying complete attention to her toddler and letting him touch her, letting him be very close to her, letting him sprinkle flowers on her head, crowning her in a sense, I think, okay, I need to give of myself. Because truly, when you become a parent, your life is no longer your own. You give your life to Christ anyway. And in parenthood, Jesus asks you to give your life to your children by spending yourself. That is what we do. That is what we do. And so I really love that particular image because it calls me to that same generosity. And that's something that benefits me. Now, we have other images in our home. We also have Our Lady of Guadalupe in our dining room. The kids are fascinated by the depth of meaning in that image, the fact that Mary made that image herself. It's not something that somebody painted. It is from heaven, that image. And they are fascinated by that, as well as all of the detail in that as well. And whenever, we just moved into our home. We moved into our home, I want to say in March of 2020.
Wow. Right before the pandemic hit.
Yes. And I was so grateful that things shutting down happened after we were moved in. I was so grateful. So we've been still settling ourselves in the house. And that includes putting things up on the walls. And the kids are very attentive when we decorate a room. And so, what are you putting up? What's going up? And they'll watch. And when they see that it's an image of Christ or of Mary, like the very first piece of decor that went up in our house was a crucifix that we have. That's my personal favorite. There's something to that, I think, in putting a priority and emphasis on Catholic art, on this faithful art. The kids see that. There's something to the idea, though, that we grow accustomed to our surroundings, right? So you might have beautiful art in your home or Catholic faithful art in your home. You walk by it 10 times a day, maybe you don't even notice anymore. Or maybe it's not making that same impact that it did before when you initially put it up. So I know that's been a problem for me. And in such circumstances, I've taken one of two approaches. One, if I want to leave that piece of art there, then I try to stop in front of it when I'm walking by. So instead of just mindlessly passing, saying, oh, okay, well, I'm going to stop and I'm going to look at this. And I'm going to consider, why did we choose to put this up? Why is this here? This image of Our Lady Star of the Sea. Why is this here? Why is she here? And I consider the depth of the relationship that I have with Our Lady Star of the Sea. And then I'm like, okay, that's the significance of this image. Or I look at even a crucifix, or I look at an image of guardian angels, or my sons in their room, they have this really beautiful image of St. Michael the Archangel, because those guys, my sons are fighters, and they love the idea of St. Michael. He's an angel, he's good, he's holy, and he's strong, and he fought Satan. Like, that's a big deal for them. So they have this image of St. Michael in their room, because this is like powerful holiness. This is strength and grace for them. That's something that they admire. And every now and then I'll point to this image that, again, they've seen 1,000 times. I'm like, hey, well, have you noticed his sword is in a sheath on his back? Man, what do you think his sword looks like? Or I just invite them to come into that image. So paying closer attention to an image that's become perhaps hackneyed in your own perception, you don't notice it as much, or the meaning doesn't make as much of an impact to you. So deliberately stopping and looking at it and recalling what is so significant about it. And then the second option that I've taken is replacing it with something. So maybe take that particular piece down and put something else in its place. Something also maybe sacred, or something that points to the beauty of God, right? One of my favorite pieces of decor is this really lovely Magnolia Wreath that I got when my family and I lived in Louisiana. And it reminds me of the beauty of springtime there, how much I loved our magnolia blooms, and just a really joyful, peaceful time. And that was a gift from God. And so all things can point back to the generosity, the truth, the beauty of the Lord. So by changing things up, that kind of refreshes a space. And not only that, but it draws your attention to what is new. Well, I'm not used to seeing that right there. So for our Advent decor, I put a large brass star in the place of a wreath that we usually have, just so we can draw our attention to the fact that we are making a journey toward Christ.
So, Katie, you said so many things. First of all, we do have a lot of art up in our home, but when we first moved into this home, we definitely focused on having a crucifix in each bedroom. It was recently I started thinking, I think we should try to get a crucifix in every single room. And I feel like the Holy Spirit is talking to me through you when you mentioned that, because it was something I was very recently thinking about, right? It's only in the room where our prayer table is that we do change up art a little bit liturgically. And then we have, even in this room, I'm looking around right now, we've a lot of our art that it's not an image of a saint or of Mary or Jesus might be just like faith, hope, and love, the words, faith, hope, and love. One advantage I think of that is if you have, and we need more, but if you have art up all over the place, right, in every room, then wherever you are, most of the time you're not looking up and noticing everything, right? But if you're having a moment somewhere, You don't have to walk into another room, right, to be reminded of our faith. You just look, oh, there's St. Michael, or there's St. Therese, or there's Mary. And you can stop and be reminded of our faith whatever room you're in, if it's in every room. Perhaps for someone who doesn't have a whole lot of art in their house and they don't want to feel like they went Catholic crazy or something, do you have some advice, right, on how to get started getting more art in your house, whether you have children or not, right, on how that would be helpful?
One of the places that I've been quite surprised to find a lot of Catholic art in are thrift stores. It's remarkable that when someone passes away, maybe somebody, their family takes a lot of their belongings and just donates them. And there have been so many occasions when I've been in a St. Vincent de Paul thrift store, a Goodwill, or even just a local thrift store, and I will find really beautiful sacred images. So one of my favorite statues of the Holy Family that we have was $1.59 at Goodwill. And I saw it and I thought, you know what, I'm going to buy this and maybe give it to someone in my parish. So I thought it definitely does not belong here. I want this to be in a place where it would be received and respected, and where someone would look upon the Holy Family and be reminded of love and God's faithfulness, right? And then after I brought it home, I thought, oh my goodness, I think I love this. And so now it's in our living room right now. And I still have that $1.59 sticker attached to the bottom of it because I wanted the kids to see that as well, for them to know that this image doesn't live in a thrift store and that we can bring it home and we can take care of it. So I recommend checking your thrift stores because you might be surprised, especially when it comes to crucifixes as well and images of Mary. I found a lot of statues of Mary in thrift stores. And you're right, you don't have to go Catholic crazy. At one point, I think my husband and I, when we were newlyweds, we had, I think, 5 images of Mary. And we only had 4 walls to the room. So that, and I thought, and I remember thinking, like, I sure do love our mother. I really, really do. And I think we could probably spread these out a little bit. Your home does not need to represent a Catholic museum by any stretch of the imagination. Consider the beauty, the truth, and the goodness of God and orient your decor in that direction. Another way that you can begin acquiring more faithful art is, you might see behind me right here is a print that says, "Do justly, love mercy, walk humbly with your God." That is a print that my husband got off of Etsy, where you can go on Etsy or other websites and search for Catholic print. And a lot of people will sell quite cheaply downloads of their own Catholic pieces. So maybe you could download a piece for $5 and get it printed at FedEx for $1.50 or something like that. And then with a modest frame, suddenly now you have decor in your space that points to our Lord. And this is something quite easily switched out. So those are different avenues I recommend. If you want something that will last for generations, something that you want to pass on to your children, you can look for more durable options at maybe a Catholic bookstore in your area, or I think there's a website, catholicart.com. I might be mistaken, but there are ways of finding pieces online that will be a little more on the expensive side, but even buying just 1 or 2, I mean, that's a very good start.
We're broadcasting this in February. Lent is coming up. This could be the perfect time to say, we're going to put another crucifix up in our house. Use Lent as a reason to put up some more art. And then once that's been in your home for 6 weeks, it stays. At that point, it doesn't have to go away. Or like we were in some cases, maybe a particular image could even be replaced by another image that's perhaps more resurrection focused. We can also think about the outside of your home. I invest in a statue of Mary in the garden. And on feast days, my wife put together a crown out of artificial flowers and weave that together with pipe cleaners or something. And we'll come out there and we'll crown, that Mary statue outside. and then bring it back in after a few days. Do you have things outside your home as well?
When we moved into our house, that was one of the things that I wanted to do right away, was get a statue of Mary in our yard as soon as possible. I had wanted one forever. I wanted to recommend as well, like looking for Catholic art on online marketplaces. So I was able to find our statue of Mary through Facebook Marketplace. And usually statues of Mary can be a little bit on the pricier side, and understandably, but I was able to find one for $20. Wasn't very consequential in terms of price, but putting her out there underneath this really lovely tree that we have just makes me so happy. And what's neat too is that our children spend a lot of time outside, and our neighborhood is, it's just such a good and safe place. We really live in a wonderful place. I told the kids at one point, I said, if you're out, if you're ever in trouble and you're in our neighborhood, look for a home that has a statue of Mary, and they will help you. And I know that I can count on that. And they are truly looking for Mary, looking to Mary to help them be found, in a sense. Now, that situation has not happened. I don't anticipate that it will, but should it ever arise, that's like a little 911 feature. If you're going for outside decor it's so much more than that, isn't it? It's not just something lovely to look upon. It's not something to just adorn your home. It's important and it has meaning. And in terms of instructing our children, I was just talking to my 9-year-old son this morning who was refusing to share. And I called him down from his room and I said, okay, what has God blessed you with? And he said, my brothers, my sister, and he just listed a few things. And I said, right, the best things in your life, those are from God, right? And he said, yeah. And I said, so God is generous, right? He said, yes. I said, did you know you're made in the image and likeness of God? He knows that. We've discussed it before several times. And he said, right. And I said, so that means that if you are made in the image and likeness of God, it's your job to imitate him, to try to be like him. And so you have just acknowledged that our Lord is generous. Can you be generous with yourself as God is generous with himself? And he said, yes. And so how that can come back to faithful art is that those things are on display in Catholic art, and we can draw those things from it.
That was a beautiful image you were just talking about right there. How can we be more like God, or how can we be more like a saint in a particular situation with your kids? I can tell you with my kids, when you do that, if they feel like we as parents are not living up to the model we were just asking of them, right, then it doesn't work nearly as well. And so it's true that in addition to having art in your house, it's the parents' responsibility to do it first, to live it first, show it first, being kind and generous and respectful to your children, right? And then you can expect them to imitate that behavior. Granted, we're not perfect either, but we say, hey, can we be more like Jesus in this moment? I think if they know that you as a parent are trying as well, then they'll listen to you better, particularly when they get older, when they're 10, 11, and 12, and 13.
I have to add that, I mean, like I mentioned before, the Catholic art in our home, yes, I know that my children see it. I know it benefits them, and I use it as a tool for teaching them, but it is really and truly for my benefit as well. I heard a story, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, about my grandmother. While she was going about her day in her home, especially if there was a crucifix in the room, she would kneel in front of that crucifix and pray. And it wouldn't be very long. Maybe she would offer a rote prayer, or maybe she would just speak from the heart. And then that was it. And she would rise and then go about her day and carry on with whatever it is that she needed to do. Inspired by this, I thought, well, gosh, like I can do that as well. And I can kneel before the sacred images that we have and show my children. And my children, our house is not big. We have 5 kids in about 1,400 square feet. So we run into each other quite a lot. And my kids, they'll catch me at it. And sometimes it's funny, you can tell who's speaking to me based on their reaction. My 10-and-a-half-year-old would be like, Mom, what are you doing? My 3-and-a-half-year-old will tell everyone to hush because Mom's praying. And so it's neat because regardless of their reaction, they're still seeing me do it. And we know that as parents, we are our kids' primary educators, whether we like it or not. Truly, we model the faith for our kids. And if we don't model the faith for our children, then that in itself is a model. If we are not active in our faith, if we're not active and respectful of their lives, we cannot expect them to have faith or be respectful of other lives.
That reminded me of one quick comment, like particularly when you have little kids and you put them to bed, and how often do they get up and say they want water or they can't sleep or they have a headache or whatever it is. And the question I would ask a parent is, when they do that, what are you doing when they come down unexpectedly? Are you watching television every single time they come downstairs after they're put to bed? Do they ever catch you praying? Do they ever catch you reading the Bible? Or is it always watching television? And if it's always watching television, that's going to affect them. That's going to make them, okay, that's what you do right, when I'm put to bed. And that's what we get to do. That's what people can do when they stay up late. So not that we pray in order to be caught praying, obviously. But if that's not what you ever do, that's going to affect, what your kids see as a priority. It's important to think about those kinds of things, I think, as well.
Yes, one of my favorite phrases is more is caught than taught. So you can sit your child down and have a conversation about what's important, but really whatever they catch you doing, whatever they see you doing, that's what they will do, no matter what it is.
How does this all tie in, kind of as a summary on how art in the home can really help raise pro-life kids?
Images of God, when we consider who God is, He is life-giving. God is love. Love is life-giving. Love begets more life. And I'm not just talking about how love begets life in the marital union and then there are children. It's not just that, but there's a certain freedom. So if you speak a loving word to someone, that lightens them, right? Or if you speak a loving word to someone in an argument, then that releases a lot of tension, right? And so because God is life-giving and these sacred images point to His love and who He is, when we see these sacred images, we're reminded of that and we're called to imitate that. And so that goes back to the concept of respect life, because life itself is ordained by God. It is a gift from God. When I give retreats, I talk to a lot of women and I say, how is it that you can look at a sky full of stars and marvel at it? Or you look at a vast ocean and marvel at that. But sometimes when you look in the mirror, you think, or you find flaws, you find something that you would love to fix. And what we neglect to realize is that we are far more splendid, we're far more lovely than the stars because we are made in the image and likeness of God. And so we reveal God's gift of life. And because it's a gift from the Lord, it deserves respect and it deserves that regard and that reverence. And so having faithful art or any kind of decor in your house that points to the beauty, truth, and goodness of God, that is going to further underscore that truth and that significance.
All right, Katie, well, thanks for talking with us today about art in the home. I hope our listeners learned a lot about how we can better appreciate how to put art in our home and how it can help us raise Catholic kids who love Jesus and respect all life. So thanks for spending time with us today.
Thanks, Bob. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate the time.
And I want to thank all our viewers and listeners for tuning in on this episode of our Being Pro-Life series. Head to the website to view more resources talked about in this episode at www.catholicaoc.org/being-pro-life. Thank you again for joining us today, and I look forward to being with you next time.